to get a better sense of how Iraq has unravelled in this way. I'm joined by Fawaz, Gerges and Colonel Peter Mansour. Fawaz is an expert on regional politics in the Middle East. He's director of the Middle East Centre at the London School of Economics. Colonel Peter Mansour served as the executive officer in Iraq under former CIA chief David Petraeus. He joins us from Ohio. Colonel, first of all, to you, all eyes on President Obama. He's non-committal so far, but the military seem to be moving assets in the region. What do you think is going on in terms of preparations?
Well, I think the military is getting ready to conduct airstrikes if ordered to do so, deliver arms and weapons if ordered to do so. They're just getting ready to do whatever the president may order. I think the more important deliberations are going on in the White House as to what we actually should do. And that's an open question right now, because I don't think it's a done deal that the United States is going to intervene in this civil war with military force.
He said no boots on the ground. Is it possible to take this on without having boots on the ground?
It's not possible to win this conflict without some sort of ground force that can retake the ground that's been taken by ISIS. It's pretty clear the Iraqi army doesn't have that capability right now, so it's an open question as to who we would be supporting on the ground. Certainly not Shiite militias. In terms of airstrikes, they can certainly attrit the enemy. They can destroy vehicles, destroy buildings. That is, if we can target the enemy accurately. He'll simply melt away into the cities and make it very difficult for air power to actually locate the targets. And so there's no good options here in a military sense without boots on the ground.
Fawaz, if there's a ground force that's going to take this on, who would it be if it's not going to be the Americans?
Well, already several elements are converging.
I think it's got to be the
first,
one moment, Colonel.
The first point, the Kurds now are fully fighting alongside some elements of the security forces. They have made some major advances in Kirkuk and other places. Secondly, what you have now is that you have a large number, a large army of volunteers, mainly Shiites, as a result of the calls by the most, important senior cleric in Iraq, Ali as-Sistani. He is seen as a holy figure. His call resonates deeply. Thirdly, I think what we need to understand, there are major reports, credible reports, that Iran has already positioning assets. Iran has already assets in Iraq, but probably introducing new elements in order command and control and forces on the ground to help the Iraqi forces. What the Americans, Max, what the Americans can do, of course, they have limited options. I don't think the Americans will send troops, boots on the ground. They can do is to stiffen the resolve of the Iraqi forces, to prevent the bleeding of the security apparatus, the disintegration, trying to help the Iraqi forces to regroup, trying to provide logistical support, intelligence support, command and control. This is what's needed. Iraq does not need arms. There are plenty of arms. There are plenty of men. The Iraqi security forces number between 500,000 and 1 million. What you're talking about is organization and reorganization, and this is what the Americans know best.
Well, we're going to show some information there about the sectarian problem there, because when you say, when we talk about these ethnic and religious differences in Iraq, we need to look at a map, and Iraq does have this very delicate and often precarious balance of ethnic and religious communities. They include Sunni and Shiite Arabs, ethnic Kurds and other groups. And ISIS appears to be taking advantage of Iraq's instability to grab territory. Kurdish forces from the autonomous region in the north are working with Iraqi forces to push ISIS out of Mosul. Kurdish forces also have taken control of Kirkuk after it was abandoned by Iraqi soldiers under pressure from militants. The Kurds regard Kirkuk as their historic capital. So, Colonel, things are moving extremely quickly, and there is sort of sympathetic feeling on the ground that the Americans can work with. How confident are you that it can get organized enough to take on the insurgents, which are seen as the bad guys by the US?
Well, Nur al-Maliki, ever since US forces left Iraq in 2011, has replaced a lot of the competent army leaders with political cronies. He's created a military that's very loyal to him and can't fight very well. And so I think it would take a change of government, actually, to create an army that's actually willing to fight for Iraq and not necessarily just be beholden to Maliki and his regime. And that may take a while. It's easy to deliver technical advice and so forth. It's much harder to teach someone how to be loyal and how to want to fight and die for one's country.
And Obama was alluding to this, wasn't he, today, saying the pressures on the local government to get organised. But this is a great opportunity, isn't it, for the insurgents, because they know that there's the weak political control in Baghdad.
They have the momentum. They have the psychological rupture effect. I mean, remember, war is as much about psychology as about realities. We should not exaggerate the prowess of ISIS, Max. The reason why ISIS has done as it has not faced any real resistance. Mosul, Tikrit, hardly any major shots fired by the Iraqi forces. You're talking about a few in the thousand, the lower thousand, as opposed to tens of thousands. The reality is, where's the security forces? Where is the army? What you need here is a new political inclusive government on the part that Nouri al-Maliki, this is under his watch. And the reality is, without an inclusive government, without the Kurds, remember, the Kurds are Sunnis.
But we haven't got time to organise that.
Well, you have to do it. It's under fire. If you don't, you die. As simple as that.
But because Baghdad will be taken over by
No, not at all. Look, Max, Baghdad is a huge city. You have tens of thousands of Shiite militias who would fight to death. This is not as simple. They've taken Tikrit, tens of thousands of citizens and mainly Sunnis. But remember, regarding the sectarian element, the Kurds are Sunnis, they're not Shiites. So the Kurds now are fighting alongside the Shiite-led government, Nouri al-Maliki. Nouri al-Maliki is toxic when it comes to Sunnis. There must be a political horizon in which whereby some Sunnis join the government. The reality is ISIS is cheered on by some Sunni elements. Some Sunnis are teaming up with ISIS in order to fight the so-called, what they perceive to be a sectarian-led government in Baghdad.
There are American forces still on the ground, aren't there, Colonel, in Iraq? So how can Obama best use them to better the sort of resolve of the Iraqi forces?
There's only a very small Office of Military Cooperation, which has the mission of delivering arms to the Iraqi army. So really there are no boots on the ground there. There's a lot of civilian contractors, which really aren't under the U.S. government's control, per se, in a lot of cases. But I think we have time here. I would agree with your other guest. Baghdad is a huge city. Most of it is Shia. The Iraqi armed forces will fight much more desperately for it. The Shiite militias will come out in force. ISIS has had an easy time taking over Sunni Arab areas of Iraq. All the easy pickings have been accomplished, and now it's going to come up against much more resistance. And that gives us time, gives the Iraqis time to develop a government that would actually be worth supporting versus the one it has in place now.